What's up, everybody? It's Eric, Brad, and Will from the Mature Minded Gamers.
What up?
What up, everyone?
We are going to break down episode 3 of Star Trek Lower Decks. You guys ready?
The lowerest of the decks available.
Let's do this.
Temporal Etiquette. And, boy, you know what? This is a classic throwback, in my opinion. What'd you guys think of all the callbacks to classic Trek?
I've been kind of hard on this series so far up to this point, but I think I actually enjoyed this one. There were a lot of different parts of this episode that I thought were just they were humorous and they were kind of nostalgic in a way that I thought kind of hit what I expected the series to be. So. Actually addressing the whole buffer time thing, that's something that Scotty had said in the episode Relics on Next Generation, and something that I even think O'Brien might have said at some point on DS9, which is funny, at the end of the episode, what they mention about O'Brien. And so, just little things like that. I actually enjoyed some of this episode. I found myself actually laughing out loud as opposed to just kind of, smirking a little bit here and there. The whole first officer kind of you know putting himself in danger for the sake of the crew, and the woman kind of falling for him and stuff like that. I don't know, it just had a lot of classic stuff in there that I think I actually enjoyed. So there was a glimmer of hope in this episode for me.
I agree with you, Brad. I have been not the happiest of campers when it's come to this show, but I actually very much enjoyed this episode. I'm not sure if it was because we got to see more of the crew and not just quote unquote the lower decks. We got to see how more about the captain, the first officer, and how the crew has interacted with them. And when I first started watching it, I guess the first couple episodes were more of like development for who the lower crew characters were. And I'm thinking now this may be the turning point to when this show really starts to shine. How we're going to see that interaction of what the the lower deck, actually do on the ship to make differences. And we kind of saw that with how Boimer, affected the how he, when he spoke to the captain and gave him his inspirational speech about having free time, having less strict rules and time frames and whatever, and how was her name, Malmer was her name? What the hell is her name? Mariner. How Mariner interacted with the first officer and maybe even started like a little bit of a romantic fling. And I like the fight. How it was like these people with sticks and how they pretty much like just kicked the ship's butt. And it was like, oh, don't follow protocol and actually defend yourselves. I just thought it was fun. I thought it was an entertaining episode. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It was a different episode. We didn't get a lot of Ensign Tindy or Ruford, and those have been two of my favorite characters so far. So I was a little bit surprised at how much I like this episode, but the classic pullbacks to the Next Generation. I mean, it started out with them playing instruments, which we've seen a lot in the Next Generation. Data and even Riker and Picard. Picard played his flute a few times for everybody, didn't he? I believe. Yeah. And so we get a nice callback to that, and the whole part of the downtime. I found it really, really funny that Boimer loved it, and he was rocking. He was like the only crew member that was able to keep up, and that kind of gave me a callback to Voyager when 7 of 9 was working like crazy and trying to get everything up to maximum efficiency. I think they did a whole episode on that, and she kind of had to realize that the other crew members couldn't keep up with her. Like they had to have recreation and like personal time where she didn't really value that at all. And then ends up, like you said, with them attacking with the spears. I mean, that's a classic TOS episode right there. I mean, how many times did we see spears or rocks or something, or any kind of alien? Even the Next Generation had that happen several times, where they get surrounded or they get trapped, and they, even though we have all this technology, they get captured, and then
they kind of play off of that humor too, because he said, why am I scared? I've got a phaser. and he just shoots 3 or 4 of them, and then he goes on the bridge and he says something like, I just phased 3 of these guys. Why is it that how is it we're getting taken over by these guys?
Exactly. And Mariner references it, even flying down in the shuttlecraft when they're going down. She's like, because I think Captain Ransom or Commander Ransom is like, oh, we got some kind of turbulence coming on or something. And she's like, clouds? And he has to take manual control. I mean, how many times do we see them do that? And then she's like, yeah, why would we use autopilot? And it's all the classic things.
Yeah.
I just thought it was hilarious. And so he takes him down, and then, she's like, why didn't we just use the transporter? Everything that we've always, kind of thought to ourselves in our head. But, that takes all the drama out of an episode. And so I thought it was really funny. And she did the same thing when the guy got stabbed in the shoulder with a spear. We're on a flying starship. You're not going to die from a spear wound. It's really good. She played off of it really well. And it turned out to be one of my favorite episodes so far, too. You guys touched on it earlier. We got, Commander Ransom totally turning into Kirk down there, and obviously wooing Mariner quite a bit with his combat, which was, I mean, we even got the music, almost identical music. I mean, I'm sure they probably couldn't use the exact music, but you could definitely tell it's what it was. And then at the very end, we got a little cool tribute to many things, actually. Did you guys notice one of the students was a Borg?
No.
Yeah, one of the students was a Borg, which obviously is probably a reference to the XBs, or maybe Hugh or 7 of 9 or something to that effect. And then she also says, here is I forget what rank she gives him. Boimer. Here's Boimer with one of the. Does she call him Ensign then? Okay, I couldn't remember. Here's Ensign Boimer, and he's the one for the that created the Boimer effect. And then here he is with one of the great birds of the galaxy. Or does she say galaxy? Here's one of the great birds or something like that. I can't remember how she words it, but obviously it's a reference to Gene Roddenberry, as his nickname was the great bird of the galaxy.
And then the most impactful Starfleet officer, Miles O'Brien.
Right, which is a great reference, because people have been really hounding for to bring back some original members, and there we get like a 2-second shot of him. You know what I found interesting about that? They look like a very young O'Brien, not like an older one that we would see in Deep Space Nine, which I thought was kind of funny, because you think of his career advancing, him going from Next Generation to Deep Space Nine. So do you guys want to see more like this that are kind of like we didn't get a lot of like continuous story. This was a definite one episodic type of thing, pretty much, where they didn't really talk anything about anybody's real a career advancing, or what Mariner's really doing there, and none of that. We didn't get any kind of continuous story. Did you guys think that played a big factor into why you like this one more than the others?
Well, I mean, I think this episode spent less time trying to justify why it was a thing. Like, the previous episodes, I feel like were like, pay attention to us. This is how we're different, but also the same. And so this one, I think, had more of an identity for itself, other than just being, another Star Trek.
I think you're spot on that, Brad. I think you're right, because the other 2 episodes were trying to have that shock value, where this one is more, hey, this is the show, and this is what happened. And I think to some extent, some of the fans are kind of irritated by what they're seeing of Discovery and Picard being full full season storylines, and they want to get back to some of the episodic storytelling that we usually see. And I think in a cartoon, it's they're able to do that, especially with what we have here. And I think this one did a really good job. I'm of all 3 of them, this is by far my favorite episode.
Anything else?
So Eric, you want to give like a little recap of some of the episodes?
Sure. So we start out with them enjoying a nice margarita after they completed a diagnostic on the force field. So they show us that scene that we have seen in the trailer several times, with Mariner shooting the phaser on full blast at Boimer, and him being like, "Why did you do that?" And she's like, "Oh, it was on stun," because she didn't have it on stun. So that was a good way to start there. Actually, that's not where we started out. We started out with the music, but I already talked about that. But anyways, that's the next scene after the music scene. And then we get them enjoying their margarita, and then we get the whole explanation of downtime, basically. What do you guys think of all that?
I mean, I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. You kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. It was kind of the classic Trek thing of showing that downtime and showing how the lower decks kind of did their thing. So I appreciated that, and um, because that, like I said in previous episodes, that's kind of what I'm looking for, is a little bit of like how the other side lives, and so that was nice having her come out and kind of rock out. That was kind of fun. Um, Having the Klingon, like, to me, it sounded more like a Klingon type music anyway. So it was kind of funny that they were already there with the Klingons when that happened. So
The next part we get is basically Captain Freeman gets demoted or moved away from the summit that was going to be with the Kardashians, and we get a reference that everybody thinks they're creepy, which is very true. I totally agree with that. But she takes it to her heart, and she wants to make the ship more relevant or more known, I guess. She thinks that they're not up to the standards that they should be, and so she cuts out their downtime after Boimer accidentally lets it slip. What do they call it? It's not downtime.
buffer time.
Buffer time. Thank you. After Boimer lets it slip that I didn't do my buffer time, and so she squeezes out of him what it is, and then she puts everybody on a tight schedule. The whole crew is just panicking and running around and doing bad at their job, and it leads to huge mistakes happening, and that's kind of how this whole episode catapults on from there.
You guys a question on that buffer time and how Boimer was able to. I mean, he lived for it. I mean, he was able to complete his jobs. He was able to, even ask for more work. What made him different? And if there are other members of Starfleet and just to be elite or whatever, what made him different as far as the other characters? What were they really trying to show there? Do you think?
Oh, just that he was an overachiever.
Do you think that no other Starfleet officer on the entire ship was an overachiever or
On
was
the
proficient
Cerritos,
with what they were doing?
I think that's kind of the whole joke about this, is the Cerritos is kind of the the underdog of the entire Starfleet, and that they just send them on these, because that's even kind of part of the episode, is like, she's like, with it, they don't take us serious, and they were like trying to reassure the captain that it wasn't because it wasn't a donk on the Cerritos, but it really kind of was. So I think that overall, this is just kind of the underdog ship of the of Starfleet.
Well, yeah, because
The Boimer's just kind of the overachiever of the Cerritos.
and so their new assignment is to go deliver trinkets. I think is what they call them, and they even fell at that, and they deliver the wrong trinket, and that's what starts the whole. These aliens, I forget their name, with the crystal spears and the crystal weapons, basically attacking. And so, they even board their ship and everything. Everybody's so tired and worn out. And Captain Freeman even says, defend the ship, but stay, keep on your task. And so nobody knows how to defend the ship. And you referenced it earlier, Brad, when Boimer, who's having no problems, just phasers those guys and like, what is going on? Why are we at red alert? And then we get the rest of it going down. We already talked about them going down, and then Boimer and or not Boimer, Mariner and Ransom basically one of them has to fight the giant big bad meanie, who you find out is actually intelligent and can speak and doesn't really want to fight. It doesn't seem like, but and then we get that whole part. Did you guys pull anything from that?
I so what I got from it was actually Thor Ragnarok, because I was thinking, oh man, that's Thor right there, and then there's Hulk, going into the battlefield. I'm not surprised you didn't say some reference like, oh, he's a friend from work.
Yeah, that would have been funny.
But they didn't pull the Star Wars reference, or excuse me, Marvel reference, which they should have, but whatever.
Yeah, I totally got that vibe too. I wonder if they would have gotten in trouble though if they would have done that.
I don't know. It's just what it reminded me of, to be honest with you. And I was just thinking that the whole time. I was like, this is just like that fight scene. But it worked. I mean, I think the fight was really cool. Um, I was actually surprised. I thought he was just going to get his butt handed to him. I thought he was going to be all so arrogant and then start fighting, and then that Voltar or whatever his name is just like picks him up and slams him on the ground, knocks him out. And then I thought Mariner was going to have to come in and save the day. That's what I was expecting to happen.
Did you notice that they used the signature Trek double-handed punch thing
Yeah.
the whole time? That's the only move he used.
Yeah. I thought that was funny.
I think we pretty much covered the whole episode. Did I miss any parts there? I mean, we talked about the ending a couple different times.
Just that, suspicions confirmed O'Brien is the most influential Trek.
Yeah, so what is the Boimer maneuver or whatever?
The need for slack time.
And you can slack off whenever you want or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, so the Boimer maneuver is basically, you take time when you need it, which is the opposite of Boimer, which is kind of ironic.
Right.
And obviously we already talked about the ending, so I think we kind of wrap this episode up. Overall, give me your score of 1 to 10, guys.
7.
8.
7, Brad. I thought you said this was your favorite episode.
It was. I've given every other episode like a 4 and a 5.
Ah.
It may be his favorite, but it's still not. He's still not up to his par of what he was expecting, I think.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely true.
I'm gonna give this one a solid 9.
9, huh?
I'm gonna say that's an overration.
I mean, this was a fairly entertaining episode. That's why, I think a solid 8. I just would have expected, because the show isn't exactly the kind of humor that I wanted to see. It's still not great Trek to me, but it's better. It's the best of what we've seen so far.
So you're saying it's a 9 on a Star Trek Lower Decks spectrum, but maybe like what on a total Star Trek spectrum?
It's a good point, Eric.
Well, I don't consider this. This is completely different than all the other Star Trek we've seen.
Every Star Trek is different than every other Star Trek we've seen.
No,
that's why everybody bitches about Star Trek.
That's
why they don't like the new stuff.
It's not different. This is completely different. You've never seen one be this funny and be focused on humor and all the references and basically make fun of its own universe.
Okay, it's still Star Trek. So to not be not graded on the same spectrum of the rest of Star Trek is kind of I don't know, just not fair, I suppose.
I think the point is it's all Trek, and in some facet, it's all in the same universe, just told from a different lens. And with that being said, I think this is good, and it's entertaining for what it is. And this particular episode, like I said, was good for what I was expecting of this show.
To me, so I wouldn't rate this as good as Discovery by any means. So if I gave an episode of Discovery a 9, and then compared it to Lower Decks best episode so far, which is this one, would probably be a 7.
Putting this as a 7 as opposed to the best episode in Discovery, I mean, that astonishes me.
I'm grading this on the merits, though. I'm not expecting to have action and awesome storytelling like I am from Discovery.
I'm not either, but I'm talking about total package. Like this doesn't even rank on the things. If I put Discovery at one end of the spectrum, anyway, I was saying that if I put all of Discovery, all of Picard, and all of what we've seen of Lower Decks on a spectrum right here, all of Discovery ranks higher than Lower Decks, and most of Picard ranks higher than Lower Decks.
To me, I divide it up. I look for humor, and that's what I want out of Lower Decks, and that's what I'm getting. So, it just seems really weird to compare Lower Decks to, another Trek.
Why?
It's a completely different show. They're not
So,
Wow.
but
Those are completely different too, but I would rank those along the same lines.
if it's a different show, how can you compare the original series to Next Generation?
Because they're both like dramas. Like they're both like sci-fi.
Look, the original series to Next Generation is as different as Lower Decks is to anything else.
No, I completely disagree.
Oh yeah.
I'm with Brad on this one. I'm sorry. I think Lower Decks is still Trek, and I think that it's just a different lens on it. Just like the Next Generation was a different lens than what we saw with the original series. That's why people didn't like the Next Generation when it first came out. Same thing when we got DS9 when they didn't like
exactly.
DS9 when it first came out. It's just a different lens of what you're used to, but it's also Trek. I'm just thankful we have something. They're trying something different.
I'm totally on that thing, and that's why I've said it every time, and I'll say it again. I'm gonna watch every episode of Lower Decks because I'm just grateful to have Trek. I'm grateful to have as so much Trek that we're gonna have back-to-back Trek for the next foreseeable future.
Completely agree with that point, and let's end it right there. Thanks for checking out our review of Star Trek Lower Decks Episode 3, Temporal Etiquette. Please check out our website, maturemindedgamers.com. We do board games, video games, and much more. Have yourself a great day.